Why are New York's traffic deaths spiking? What will the mayor do to reverse this terrifying trend?
And dignified in denim, advocates march across the Brooklyn Bridge to protest sexual assault.
What you are or are not wearing has nothing to do with consent.
Plus, Columbia baseball is shattering records. The inside scoop on their season, a first in 2 years, now in full swing. All this and more.
Live from Columbia University in the city of New York, this is CJS News.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Omasei Gudaro.
And I'm Dana Mathura. So far this year, 59 people have died in traffic crashes in the city. Nash Weiss takes a look at this terrifying trend.
Of those 59 people, about half of them were pedestrians. So now the mayor is going to throw millions of dollars at the problem to see if he can make streets safer for everyone. Empty streets no more with the pandemic in the rearview mirror. New York streets are bustling again and increasingly dangerous for pedestrians. Columbia graduate student Emma Davini had the walk signal to cross Central Park West.
I was looking both ways, making sure no cars were coming, and I was fine. But then when I got almost to this side of the road, a moped came whizzing in the bike lane and really almost hit me.
She got lucky.
He screeched tires and had to brake.
Others weren't as lucky. In just the first 3 months of this year alone, 29 pedestrians were struck and killed by cars. That's the deadliest start to any year since 2014.
Too many New Yorkers have lost their lives.
Mayor Adams is committing $904 million over the next 5 years to expand protected bike lanes and add car-free pedestrian space. But safety advocates say it isn't enough.
We know what works to keep people safe. City leaders just haven't scaled that up across the city.
Debbie Erdan of Families for Safe Streets says the city's plan needs to include the most effective tool to curb traffic deaths.
Vehicles shouldn't be able to turn when people are in intersections. And I don't know if they have the political will to actually do that.
Erdan wants to add turn arrow lights to the city's 13,000 signaled intersections, a huge undertaking. But the city hasn't committed to doing that.
That's where people get killed, is in the intersections, in the crosswalks, when vehicles are turning.
In addition to infrastructure improvements, Adams wants to go after speeders and distracted drivers by upping enforcement.
There are people who are habitual, dangerous drivers. We need to find them proactively and get them off the streets.
In the meantime, Erdan says the responsibility is on us to pay attention.
None of us, when we're moving, whether we're walking or riding a bike or driving a vehicle, should be looking at a device, taking our eyes off the road or off the sidewalk.
Yeah, those distractions are one of the biggest things that I've seen out reporting this story. People on their phones, whether they're walking or driving, people just don't want to put down their device.
And Nash, is the city doing anything to make the streets safer?
So the first plan of attack the city is doing is putting physical barriers up on these bike lanes. The one behind me is supposed to be receiving a barrier very soon to separate the traffic from bicyclists. We've had people driving in the lane, coming up, even up onto the curb to get around the traffic. Back to you.
Thanks, Nash. And rush hour turned deadly for one subway commuter. Another shooting in the city. The latest in Jamaica, Queens, where a 24-year-old man was shot dead in a subway station after an argument. His killer still at large. Since February, 1,000 more police officers have been assigned to the subways. Still, in the past month, felonies in the city have climbed more than 50%.
Wearing jeans has become a global symbol for the fight against sexual violence. Our reporter Shanti Langwa Ortega has more on Denim Day.
Jeans, jackets, and even capes, but not just any kind.
The consent cape.
The message was clear.
No means no!
Denim Day takes its name from a 1999 court case in Italy when an accused rapist said the woman consented because her jeans were so tight she had to help him take them off. Survivors, advocates, and community members walked from Brooklyn to Lower Manhattan in support of victims.
I'm here today because I am a survivor, right? And a survivor of many violence, many systems, and especially domestic violence.
For the last 23 years, Denim Day has reminded us that there is never an excuse or an invitation for sexual assault, harassment, and abuse.
1 in 3 women have experienced sexual violence in their lifetime. For men, that number is 1 in 4. Today, New Yorkers are marching to raise awareness and demand more support from lawmakers.
Just in 2022 so far, 750 New Yorkers have been sexually assaulted. And we know that is a severe undercount because so many cases go unreported.
Earlier this week, the New York State Senate passed the Adult Survivors Act. The bill would extend the statute of limitations and give victims 1 year to file retrospective civil lawsuits against their abusers. The bill now goes to the Assembly, where it stalled last year.
Change requires action. Survivors should not be the only ones who are fighting against sexual violence. It has to be every one of us.
But the strongest message here was one for survivors.
Don't stay silent because you aren't alone.
The Adult Survivors Act is part of a package of bills for sexual assault survivors that passed the state Senate this week and is now going to the Assembly.
So, Shakti, what are some of the other bills?
One of the other bills would allow sexual assault survivors to get out of contracts for phones, cables, and utilities that they share with their abusers.
Nice. Thanks, Shakti.
Now turning our attention to China, where COVID is making a comeback. The country is now trying to control outbreaks in 2 major cities, Shanghai and Beijing, with nearly 50 million citizens. Shanghai's shutdown could signal bad news for the auto industry, causing a shortage to the already limited global supply.
Big news for parents with young kids. Moderna is now seeking FDA approval to vaccinate children under 6. The company is the first manufacturer to request approval to vaccinate roughly 18 million of the youngest Americans. An increase in hepatitis cases in young children has health authorities around the world concerned. Hepatitis is an inflammation of the liver, and more than 130 cases have recently been identified, the majority in Britain, though several other countries, including the U.S., have also seen a mysterious uptick. Researchers say the cause might be a virus that either mutated or teamed up with another virus, like the one that causes COVID-19. Parents are told to watch out for symptoms like dark urine, vomiting, fever, fatigue, and jaundice, which is a yellowing of the eyes and skin. And to prevent further spread, health authorities say wash your hands and use a tissue when coughing or sneezing. Up next, tenants push back on the sale of an Upper West Side church.
And why this young New Yorker chooses to run for miles on end.
A landmark church on the Upper West Side is selling its building to developers who plan to build a high-rise. Performing arts group members renting the space are doing everything they can to stop the sale. Tyler Hatfield has the story. Tyler?
This church behind us has been in the community since 1889, but soon the church is planning to reverse their city landmark status, leading it to its demolition. On the corner of 86th and Amsterdam sits a church with a sandstone facade. Inside, a sanctuary where actors and dancers practice and perform, but perhaps not much longer. West Park Presbyterian Church plans to sell the property to developers who want to build a high-rise on the site, but the center at West Park, a performing arts space who leases the property, is fighting to stop it.
First priority is to save the building and to continue to operate for the community that we serve.
Zachary Tomlinson is artistic director of the center at West Park. This nonprofit was born out of the church that financially assisted dwindling congregation. The church stood to benefit from the center, paying rent and sharing revenue from ticket sales. When they signed the 5-year lease, the center says they were given a right to renew. Tomlinson says the church disputes that, and they want them kicked to the curb by the end of the year.
We were partners in saving this building, but over time it's become more difficult as their resources have dwindled and the pressure has been on them to try to figure out a solution.
CJS News reached out to West Park Presbyterian for comment, but they did not respond. This church has told the center they defaulted on the lease when they failed to meet adequate repairs. But Tomlinson says that's not true.
Some of those violations are connected to the condition of the building as we received it. And some of those violations were also things that we have been working with the church to try to cure.
Tomlinson concedes West Park never got the required authorization from the New York State Attorney General for its contract.
They may have been aware of this requirement when this lease was signed, but we weren't. And as our landlord, we feel it was their obligation to do what they needed to do to honor this commitment.
Reverend Derek McQueen is a former member on the Board of Trustees for the center at West Park. He believes the center has benefited West Park and the local community.
The idea that you come in and you reshape a neighborhood without talking to the people, that's an issue for me.
That issue has not gone unnoticed by Tomlinson.
I know there are thousands of other people in this community who have similar stories of seeing a performance or creating something or being part of something here that was really meaningful in their life.
Tomlinson wants the building to stay. The center is determined to fight to keep it standing for years to come. Next week, Community Board 7 plans to have a hearing to discuss the reversal of the city landmark status of the church. Thompson hopes that people can show up, voice their opinions, and then sign a petition found on SaveWestPark.com. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Tyler. For the next few weekends, runners and bikers will be taking over city streets. Rosine Reed introduces us to one running enthusiast.
Last weekend was Brooklyn Marathon. Next weekend is the Mother's Day Half Marathon. But why do people put their bodies through this rigor? Some do it for the thrill of it. Others, like 38-year-old Araisa Rivera, go the extra distance to stay healthy.
I hated running, and I got into fitness, and one of my girlfriends was like, oh, you should come, we have this new workout. I came, and it was a speed workout. We literally ran around this park, and I just loved the vibe. I felt seen, I felt heard, there was jokes, there was humor, I didn't feel alone, there was people that looked like me. And then I came back that Monday, and I was like, okay, I'll walk, I won't run. And I just kept coming back.
People enjoy running, just the activity of running. Getting outside can also be beneficial to your mood. Running is well documented to produce endorphins, and these have the effect of decreasing stress and increasing mood.
Rahisa belongs to the Harlem Run Club that meets here twice a week at Marcus Garvey Park, where she helps runners prepare for marathons and healthy living.
Been over 5 marathons. I just did a stage ultra in August, which was 60-miler, and there's a few more challenges coming.
A 2022 study by Tester User found there was an increase in running and walking outdoor activities since the pandemic hit. Arahisa trains for marathons in various ways.
I have started by biking, walking, and lots of hiking.
Besides the fun of it, Arahisa trains for health reasons.
Well, yeah, I mean, I come from a family that is, my mother is 4th generation diabetic. I'm also on maternal side. We have a lot of heart disease. My mom has gone through a lot of stuff this past 2 years. So for me, health-wise, is hopefully to never be diagnosed with any of those 2 things.
More than 500,000 adult New Yorkers have been diagnosed with diabetes. Dr. Royer suggests these measures to prevent diabetes.
One of the more important things you can do is, watch your diet and watch your weight. Some of the modifiable risk factors include a sedentary lifestyle. So being active goes a long way in preventing diabetes.
For beginners who want to start running, Arahisa suggests this.
Go out. If you need a friend, ask a friend, maybe start with a walk. Sometimes friends can hold you accountable, but literally just get out. Start where you are, appreciate your body where you are, and take it from there.
Twitter will soon be a privately owned company. Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, plans to buy Twitter for roughly $44 billion. What does this mean for its estimated 200 million users? This morning, I spoke with Cindy Cohn, the executive director of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, a nonprofit digital rights group. My first question, should we be concerned?
I think that there are reasons to be concerned. I think there's the tweets that Mr. Musk has sent so far and his statement about why he wants to buy Twitter, I think reflect a pretty naive view of how content moderation works and how a social network of Twitter's size needs to work in order to protect all the users.
So essentially, are you saying we should be concerned about our privacy? Is that what you mean, or what are your thoughts about that?
You know, we know as people who hear from people all around the world who try to participate on that platform that content moderation at scale at the size of Twitter doesn't work very well. And most of the people who end up getting censored aren't the billionaires. They're actually marginalized people all around the world who can't get their voice heard and who end up getting censored as a result of misuse of or mistakes in Twitter's strategy. You know, what Mr. Musk has said so far indicates that he doesn't understand how hard this is or how important it is. And, you know, we'll see. You know, I hope that once he gets into Twitter and under the hood, he'll see, you know, why it's a lot harder than just simply deciding that you're not going to do any moderation at all, which is what he's indicated he thinks is the right thing.
And you mentioned censorship. So with Elon Musk purchasing Twitter, obviously it's going to be a private company that he owns. What are your thoughts about him having so much power within the digital space?
I mean, I'm not comfortable with anybody having that much power. Even if Mr. Musk was the best person in the world, it's not right to have a few people be in charge of the space where the rest of us are trying to communicate, organize, share information. You know, the answer to, you know, having a bad dictator is not to have a better dictator. The answer is to get rid of dictators. So I wouldn't be comfortable with anybody, you know, any other single billionaire taking over this. It's not really about Mr. Musk specifically. There are things he's said and done that make it particularly worrying, but we really need to point our goal at not having a single place or a single person who has that much control over our speech. In the long term, we need competition, we need interoperability, and we need a lot of choices for users about how they want to have their social networking.
Cindy, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up after the break.
Columbia has knocked it out of the ballpark this season, but do they have what it takes to break a record?
The Energy Department is flipping the switch on light bulb manufacturers.
Now for news on sports. The Columbia Lions baseball team is on a 16-game winning streak. Ronald Harrell Jr. has more.
After 2 years of no one in the stands, Robertson Field is finally buzzing with excitement. The baseball team is on a 16-game winning streak, breaking their previous record with a 9-4 win against Army. But with the superstitious nature of baseball, no one on the team wants to jinx their success.
We're not thinking about the win streak too much, to be honest. I know the team culture right now is at an all-time high. This year has been a lot of fun. We all get along really well.
The Lions currently place second in the nation in active winning streaks, only behind Central Michigan and their 18-game winning stretch.
A big win streak, like it's kind of just a product of doing little things every day and having things compound overall.
Reflective of that grind is the team standings. Columbia's overall record is 23-13 with a 13-2 record in the Ivy League. They lead the conference in runs scored, home runs, and batting average. For the 8 seniors on the team, Columbia's current success is more than they could have ever hoped for.
But what makes this winning season more important for these seniors is that their last 2 have been disrupted by COVID.
We obviously have like group chats and like video calls and all that stuff while we were away throughout COVID, and it was something where we had all talked and we knew that obviously like this was going to be the last time probably that we were going to be together, being on this field. For a lot of us, it's the last time that we're playing baseball for the rest of our lives, so we just want to make the most of it.
The last time Sajin May and Josh Solomon played a full season was their freshman year. COVID hit during their sophomore year, cutting the season short. Their junior year was canceled by the Ivy League. During that time, they took matters into their own hands to feel like a team, even when they couldn't meet on the field.
Baseball for no 2 years has really meant a lot of excitement and anticipation for each and every one of us, and I think we have embraced that. We're bringing it out on the field this year.
This team values one another deeply after the years apart. For the remainder of the season together, they hope to win on the road against Cornell and Dartmouth. The next time you can see your Columbia Lions at home is if they're the #1 seed at the end of the regular season. Then they will get to host the Ivy League playoffs. Until then, we'll be cheering from afar. Here at Robertson Field, this is Ronald Harrod Jr., CJS News.
It's lights out for the incandescent bulbs we all know. The Biden administration wants them replaced with energy-efficient LEDs. Grace Conley reports.
The Biden administration is pulling the plug on incandescent light bulbs, a rollback of a Trump-era policy. On Tuesday, the Department of Energy announced a plan to cut back on manufacturing the old light bulbs. Instead, they will focus on ramping up the production of bulbs that will conserve energy and reduce consumers' energy bills. Old bulbs that don't meet the new standard will be phased out of production within the next 75 days. For hardware store owner Bob Lindell, the transition to energy-saving bulbs is a welcome change.
They last much longer and they use much less electricity. Like this store here, every bulb is LED.
But the switch comes at a price. The average LED costs 5 times the amount of an incandescent bulb. But according to the Energy Department, U.S. consumers are estimated to save $3 billion on their utility bills.
So it's just a win-win. You know, our electric bill is so much lower than it was, and we get so much more light.
The consumers will be saving, and so will the planet. As much as 222 million metric tons of carbon emissions over the next 30 years. Grace Conley, CJS News.
Have you made the switch yet?
Well, I haven't, but it is good for the environment, so I do plan to.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, that's it for this week. I'm Omasei Gadaro.
And I'm Dana Mathura.
Thank you for joining us, and see you again next week.